Welcome to the weekly dose here from the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation. We are in a new series about how to cope with divorce, and Greg Hubbard, who is an attorney mediator with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, is my guest. He came to us after his own divorce and as an attorney mediator. So he brings a composite of experience and empathy to the mediation process, which is well attested by his clients. So today's topic is all about grieving the losses of divorce. We've talked a little bit about the anger and the shock of divorce and coping with the immediate aftermath, etc. And today we're going to move a little bit further into the process and talk about the losses that you grieve in any life change, whether you decided it or it was decided for you.
Such a lighthearted topic today, right?
Yes, absolutely. So so tell me a little bit about when did you get into the grief? Was it expected? Was the level of grief what you expected, or did you have no expectations?
Well, I shared, I think in our first video in this series, a little bit about how, because of the way I'm wired, I tried to delay my own feelings about this for about 90 days, which that doesn't really work, but I avoided some of it because there was so much to be done, so many things that had to be taken care of, so many people that had to be talked to, so many arrangements that had to be made. But once I had all that under control, then I knew that I had to do something, that I was hurting. So I did. I stopped and focused. And I was a little surprised at the level of grief that came up once I stopped and allowed that. I wasn't a person who allowed myself to cry a whole lot, but now all of a sudden I allow myself to feel the losses, and not just the loss of a spouse of 20 years, which is of course significant, but there's so many other losses that come along. Loss of some time with your kids, and loss of your financial situation to some degree, and loss of, even for us, we decided to sell the home, and the loss of the place you called home for a while. Just so many losses, and once I allowed myself just to be real about what I was experiencing, it did surprise me how much there was to grieve.
Yeah, and it also seems that it's really a loss of your life that as you know it. It's kind of like the rug got pulled out from under you, and you're a little bit in free fall because there's nothing familiar at this point, which is really hard. But in your blog you talk about how facing these losses was actually a choice to start healing. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I read a book called Broken Open, and the title just is meaningful, I think. That sometimes when you are completely broken, while it's no fun, it can be, I guess, a pathway, a portal to larger reality. To certainly, if you're talking in spiritual terms, it can mean that. It can mean that just in life, and certain things you could not get to using your own resources or your own ability, but when everything is all of a sudden change, everything is lost. If you allow yourself to go to the bottom of that, or if you're kind of forced to due to circumstance, then there really is something pretty meaningful on the other side. And I would have not taken that seriously had I not gone through it and seen that.
Yeah, I agree. And my brother once said to me after his wife passed away that he said the most difficult thing was to go from we to me and realize that he could make his own choices. It's kind of like he was broken open, but in putting everything back together, it was never going to be the way it was, but it was going to be built a different way, and that it was something that took a little getting used to.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple times the grief that comes with losing someone to death, and I never would have thought the two had any similarity, and yet I've read that many people saying that, and then after going through it, sure there's some differences, but there's some similarities too. That you're going through a loss, and losses have similar aspects to them.
Well, research has shown that divorce comes, third on the list right after death, as a major life experience that requires the same rebuilding. It's good that you focused on how you got to a healing point, because I think a lot of people think that they're never going to get there. It's always going to be
Right.
awful. It's always going to be hurtful. They're always going to be lonely. And it's very hard to look ahead and think that, oh well, I'm going to have to build something here.
Yeah, and I learned, and for the help of a guide, but also just through the experience, that much of my life I had looked at things like, oh, I'm a victim. I'm a victim of what other people have done. I'm a victim of the big bad world. I'm a victim of circumstance, and just having an opportunity to retrain myself. That's really not true. I don't have to look at the world that way. There's a lot of good that's out there to be had, and to really believe that and base life on that was transforming.
Yeah, to challenge your own assumptions. I mean, we
Yeah.
all live inside of our heads.
No doubt. Correct.
So I want to thank you so much for sharing, the information about, the grieving losses and divorce.
Glad to do it.
We really appreciate it. I hope our audience does as well. To read Greg's blogs, please go to alpha-divorce.com, and you can read his whole series there. And shortly there will be an ebook. If you would like more information about our workshop, and our workshop is designed to help people well-being portion. We handle the financial, we handle the legal. You're really in good hands, but we're also concerned with how well you do. So we have this workshop. You can call me at 800-310-9085 or email me at alphaoutreach@alpharesourcecenter.com. Again, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.